Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. As many of you know me, my name is Joe Del Russo. I'm the education coordinator for the Passaic County Bar Association. Unfortunately, our executive director, Karen Corsi, had another matter she had to attend to today. So I'll be handling the hosting duties. I'll be handling all the administration for the next hour and 15 minutes during this presentation. Remember, at some point during the presentation, there's going to be a secret code. You need to write down the secret code. So if you want to get credit for this and send in your check, you have to put the secret code right there. Just a message to my fellow bar members from Passaic County. I'm always looking for people to do presentations like this. And I can see just from looking at the gallery here, the thumbnails, I could see many people who are subject matter experts. You know your field. I can even help you with the PowerPoints if you're not into creating PowerPoints. You don't even need PowerPoints. You can use bullet points, or you can just talk. But I'm always looking for somebody who knows something about the law in our community, and you can share it with your colleagues and peers. So, you know where I am. I got a website. You know how to find me. I'd be happy to mentor you if you don't know how to put something like this together, or, just set you up to do a presentation. So with that opening, I got a presentation today that I think you're all going to like, especially people who are involved in criminal justice. I remember as a prosecutor, I was a little skeptical of ISP. I'd put a guy in jail and then I'd be in the Walmart a week later and I'd see him walking around and be like, what the heck's going on here? But that's a bit of an overstatement. ISP is not exactly that, okay? But it is a way of looking at jurisprudence, the criminal justice system, and criminal responsibility a little bit differently, a little bit more benevolently. And our presenters today, they know their stuff, and I look forward to hearing from them. And I look forward to learning about this and putting to rest some of my misconceptions about exactly what ISP is. And I hope that they put to rest your misconceptions about exactly what ISP is. And let me just tell you about the presenters. Carlos Grandulo was named regional manager of the ISP program, intensive supervision, by Judge Glenn Grant and Brenda Beecham. And that happened in November 2024. But way before that, Carlos began his career in 2009 as an implementation programming specialist for the child support program NJ Kids. And there he would review cases for compliance with local and federal regulations and provide on-site support to entities at the county level and statewide, as a matter of fact. He joined the Judiciary in 2010, and that's when Carlos was named a bilingual probation officer in the Monmouth vicinage down the Jersey Shore. We all love Monmouth. He was in the child support unit over there and was promoted a quick 2 years later to court services supervisor 2 in the vicinage's family division, and he oversaw the interdivisional team down there in Monmouth. Beginning in 2010 after his promotion. In 2016, Carlos was named Assistant Family Division Manager, and he managed operations and programming for the matrimonial and non-dissolution dockets. And he was promoted to Assistant Manager of the ISP, why we're all here today, in 2022. Carlos went to Rider University, okay, Jersey University, just like our next presenter and many of you, myself included, although I went to Rutgers University, which Festa calls the communist training camp, but we'll let that go because he's a Seton Hall grad. Anyway, Carlos also served in the United States.
John Neely, not me.
Carlos also served in the United States Marine Corps. How about that? Where he supervised pre- and post-trial restriction programs for the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, 3rd Marine Regiment. So welcome, Carlos. We look forward to your presentation. He'll be getting the presentation, and then he'll turn it over to Sabrina. Sabrina Bea is equally accomplished, I would suggest. She was named Assistant Regional Manager for the ISP program by the legendary Judge Glenn Grant, who's now retired, and by Brenda Beecham. And Judge Grant was the administrative director at the time, and Brenda Beecham, Director of Probation Services. So Sabrina's been there since January 2024. But she began her career even before Carlos. So we'll leave it at that, huh, Sabrina? Nah, we'll tell them. You started in June 1991 as a probation investigator in the Essex Vicinage Child Support Enforcement Unit. That must have been a busy unit, I'll tell you that. She was promoted to probation officer in the criminal division in 1995 and then senior probation officer in the juvenile unit in 2000. She moved later to the family division, non-dissolution, in 2003. And there she then became a master probation officer in 2009 in the domestic violence unit. She was eventually promoted to court service supervisor 2, and that was in the Essex Vicinage Recovery Court. That was in 2013, and eventually promoted to court services supervisor 4, and that's for ISP, what we'll hear about today, in the northern region in 2019, where she supervised the adult units and court team. And folks, even though Dave Pine is in the house with his dopey Indiana Hoosier red shirt on or sweater, we'll tell everyone, Chuck Festus, Sabrina earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice from Seton Hall University. Go Pirates. There she goes. So anyway, a little bit of frivolity before we get going. Carlos, let's take a look at the slides. Teach us about ISP, please.
Absolutely. Is the just want to see, because
we're good. We can
good?
see. Yeah. And the slide.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Joe, thank you for having ISP on board today to do this presentation. It's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is outreach. We like to get out as much as we possibly can to keep everybody, informed about the ISP program, what we're doing, what's changed, eliminate any misconceptions that have gone out there over the years, what practices in the past that we're no longer using, and the approach that we're taking now to keep ourselves aligned with the times of how supervision is going, not just in New Jersey, but across the country. So just a few housekeeping things. Utilize, I know that we're able to speak back and forth, but what helps me out great is utilize the chat Q&A feature. If you have a question that you want to bring up, feel free, whatever's comfortable for you. I'm not going to force you to speak. If you want to, that's great. If not, throw your question in the chat. We'll monitor it and get your questions answered either along the way or at the end. And of course, there'll be plenty of time for a Q&A afterwards to answer any lingering questions that you may have about the program. So I want to get started. And one of the biggest questions that we get about ISP is, why does it exist? And there we go. So ISP actually started in 1983. It was an initiative to reduce prison overcrowding at the time. Back at that time, across the country, prison overcrowding was a major issue. And New Jersey, usually being at the forefront at that time, wanted to create a program that would kind of help that. One of the many resources that they've provided over the time to reduce prison overcrowding. It was funded by the state legislature at the request of the office of the governor. It's not an internal program that was necessarily created. This was something that was legislatively passed through to have enacted in New Jersey. And we don't sit within one of the vestiges. We actually sit with the administrative office of the courts in Trenton. So we're housed. Our main office primarily is in Trenton with our other offices, with our 3 regional offices, which I'll get into with a bigger graphic. But our program, in essence, is a program that permits carefully selected prisoners to serve the remainder of their sentences within the community. One of the great things we say is it's a prison without walls. It gets mirrored a lot. I'll say this now. It gets mirrored a lot with parole, but it's not like parole. It's something completely different, and you'll see why. The resources that we put into it, our structure, our development, our approach is a lot separate from parole, but it visually, optically, to the public, it seems that way. It's not. We are more of a rehabilitation program. It's not so much that you get released. And it's, if you behave well, then you would serve out, your time on ISP until you either graduate or get a termination from the program. The concept of it is that it is a rigorous program, structured with a tailored case plan for you that you would be able to comply with. Checked in on regularly, not by just your officers and managers, but also the judges who oversee the cases as well. Our level of contact, as it is intensive. In overall probation services, we have our different levels of supervision. General supervision, where most probation cases go to, have levels of contact that they have to meet. Ours is the most restrictive, where our officers are going out frequently, nights and weekends as well. We have a mandatory employment requirement. We have restrictive curfew. We alcohol and drug test constantly. And there's other things that they're required to do as part of their standard conditions, or the additional conditions that a judge may impose. Employment and community service are typically pretty standard, but the judge may also add additional things depending on the tailoring of the case. So what is our goal? So now that we're structured here, what is our goal for ISP? We strive, what we really would like to do with the program is have someone come in, get put on one of our case plans that's tailored to whatever their issues are, whatever their needs are. We want to be able to put a case plan together for them so that ultimately they would graduate from our program and then not reoffend. That's something that matters to us. We want to make sure that they've been given the tools to succeed. We want to make sure that the employment that they started out with has somehow developed into something that they would utilize as a career. We want to be that alternative to incarceration. From a financial sense, it's less costly, and it's more effective considering the amount of resources that we put into it. And building that relationship in the beginning is with our participants adds as a good reintegration tool. When these folks get released into our program, these are people that could have been in there for a few years, for anywhere between like 2 and 4 years. They may have had a significant amount of time in prison, and reintegrating into society is one of the biggest challenges, and we want to meet that challenge. We don't want to fail at it. We want to do everything we can within our power to make sure that that person is given everything possible to succeed. So we build a case plan for them. And with our relationship with their community, we want to ensure that the community safety is there as well. Not every participant is compliant. Many of them struggle, but we know that, and our plans in place aid us in being able to do that. So we want to give them the tools to succeed. And when I speak more about the case plan, you'll know why. But I really wanted to explain with our goals of ISP is we, over the years, have gone through a shift in the terms of the way that we approach cases. And I wanted to read a little excerpt from one of our directors who had made a speech at one of our conferences years ago that perfectly explains where probation is headed. Well, not necessarily headed, but where we are now, what direction we were going. Community corrections is undergoing a paradigm shift from focusing on punishment, enforcing, and monitoring to using evidence-based practices to promote positive behavioral change and success. The old approach of punishing failure through enforcement and monitoring has been the unintended consequence of increasing recidivism and incarceration by widening the net of correctional control. National experts have called for numerous paradigm shifts among probation professionals that will help their clients refrain from reoffending. These changes include moving from mass supervision to focused supervision, from time-based to goal-based, from deficit-based to strength-based, from delayed arbitrary to swift and certain, from offender-focused to victim-centered, from individual-focused to family-inclusive, from isolated to integrated, from fortress to community-based, and from gut-based to evidence-based. So that leads us to the structure that we don't want to just have a case where we're checking off the boxes and saying that we're meeting what the judges are asking us and we're doing our job necessarily just doing our job in the way that it's instructed in statute and in the law. We actually genuinely care about our cases and we want our clients to succeed. And we take the approach understanding that we know that there may be failures along the way. We have a way to respond to that, and that we're going to put a care package together that will give you treatment that we'll pay for, will go as far as, provide you clothing to be able to go on an interview to look professional, and even try to deal with any of those emotional challenges that they may be having, whether they have a receptive family. We may become like their only like outlet it seems, both in our adult and our juvenile area, which Sabrina will get into. But we in essence become their family for a significant period of time because of the care, love, and effort that we're putting into them to making sure that they can advance themselves out of being that feeling of always feeling that you're going to go back because that's what you're comfortable to understanding that the community that's been built around you has now become your new home. So ISB, how do we do this? Understanding the way New Jersey is such a wide net in our cases will come from our various visages. So we're divided up into 3 regions. So Sabrina and I sit in the northern region. We carry a wide net of cases, counties up here. Somerset, Hunterdon, Warren, Morris, Passaic, Bergen, Essex, Hunterdon, and Union. Those are the counties that we're assigned to, and who we deal with. The municipalities, police departments, prosecutor's office, attorneys. We deal with this area on a day-to-day basis for both our adult and juvenile cases. Our central region encompasses Mercer, Middlesex, Burlington, Ocean, Monmouth. And then our southern region, Camden, Gloucester, Salem, Cumberland, Atlantic, and Cape May. We cover those counties and we utilize 4 offices. Our region, the northern region, only has 1 office that sits here in Patterson. And our central region, just with our logistical layout of where our officers live and availability for offices, we have 2 offices in our central region, which is in Toms River and North Brunswick, and then in Cherry Hill for our southern region. So we're pretty spread out, and we utilize we have obviously great relationships with our visages and courthouses, and we utilize them and assist them. We utilize them, and they assist us with anything that we need when we do our reporting. Because our offices sit in standalone offices, so we don't have like sheriffs or security or anything like that. But in order to do like our reporting, let's say, with our participants, we need like a sheriff's officer present or whatever. So we'll use our visages to conduct our reporting. So we maintain great relationships with our visages and our municipalities as well. So I want to get into what it takes to get into ISP. It's a very difficult process. It's a very strict process. It's regulated both by statute and our internal practices and policies. And we go through this process to ensure that the people that are coming on are going to, at a minimum, we feel, give the investment necessary from them to be able to latch onto the case plan that we have, that we're going to develop. So we'll go through the eligibility process, the 4 levels of review. So, biggest question that we get: who can apply for ISP? Any state prison inmate can apply. Now, does that mean that they're going to get in? Even with the statutory factors, we will still take the application, and our process will with our application process in place, they'll be notified if their application will be accepted for processing, or if it's going to be returned to them for either whether it was a statutory denial or a programmatic. So we go through our levels of review. There's 4 levels. So first, our statutory review. So we have assessment teams in each region whose jobs are to look at these applications and determine whether or not they would be allowed to go to the next phase of the program. So the first one right off the bat is our statutory review. By law, there are a number of offenses that by law we can't accept. That if that person was convicted of that crime, we cannot take them no matter what. They're automatically returned. And we'll get into what those offenses are. And they're quite severe. So if they proceed, if they're not statutorily denied, they could go on to the next phase, which is the programmatic review. Programmatic review, again, our assessment team takes it a step forward, and they review the person's history to determine whether or not, if there were any other factors that would be considered, that whether we should accept this person to the next phase or deny them outright with what we call a programmatic denial. Once the assessment team has made that decision, Then they come over, they give it to the what we call the programmatic denial review board, which is the managers, and will determine whether or not, based on what's been collected, if this case would be appropriate to go to the next phase, or would it be programmatically denied for other factors that the program is allowed to consider to determine whether or not this would be a fit for the program. Next up, if they proceed on, they would go on to a screening board review, and our screening board is a group of is a three-person panel or group or panel of our staff, community, and DOC, and they make based on questioning, they make a determination on whether or not this person would be able to proceed to the next phase, which would be the judicial panel review, essentially the hearing before the judge. And the judge makes the final determination on whether or not that person would be accepted into the program. If they are accepted at that hearing right there and then, they go over what their conditions will be, and what the judge will expect out of that particular person and how they should be conducting themselves on the program. By court rule, there should be no administrative or judicial review at any levels of review for ISP admission. So I spoke about the first one, the statutory review. Our team, they go through and they look to see whether, okay, if they were to be statutorily denied, and they'll go through their criminal history and intended release plan. While we are not limited to the statutory disqualifiers, that's what the programmatic part comes into. The statutory disqualifiers do indeed limit us to the level of cases that we could take. So you can see on the screen, and you can see for yourself what those disqualifiers are. Things like a first-degree offense, robbery under Chapter 15, involved in organized criminal activity, intended residences outside the state of New Jersey, currently serving a term of parole ineligibility. If they're ineligible for parole, they would be ineligible for our program. A previous first-degree conviction, criminal homicide, and other good cause. It's pretty extensive, and there may be instances where where the applicant is showing good intention to do well in the program, but we are hit with this limit where the statutory disqualifiers would not allow us to accept. So if they are to proceed, they would go to our next phase, our programmatic review. And the ISP officer does on our assessment team would review it and determine if they would be a fit for the program. Because again, if they get accepted as program, we're going to be investing in them to get them to transition back into society with hopefully a good plan and a good level of confidence that they may be able to succeed. We review their history. We conduct a home inspection. We review who their community sponsor would be, which is required. And we do a full-blown assessment with them to see if they would be able to handle what the program is going to deliver to them. Now, I say to handle it like in the sense like it's going to be like, I know we use the word intensive, but not in the sense that we're taking that in a negative approach, but the requirements are going to be in essence intense for them because it's something that they may not have experienced that before, where they're going to have so many requirements being thrown at them, and then an understanding the relationship they're going to have with their officer, they'll be able to balance it. We just have to find out at a minimum how much of that they would be able to take. If they proceed, we go to our screening board review. Like I said before, it's a three-person panel, a representative from the ISP program, Department of Corrections and Community. They review what's been prepared, and they make a determination whether or not this person would be eligible to succeed to the next phase, which is our judicial panel. It's a two-judge panel, and with COVID occurring in 2020, that thrusted ISP into the virtual environment, where our hearings are conducted completely virtually, unless the judge really needs to have the hearing in person. We conduct all our matters virtually, which is the virtual two-judge panel. And they are given a packet prepared with everything that we've put together, that the screening board has reviewed, as well as any objections that have been provided, and any information or arguments that have made by counsel. We've had, on occasion, we've had attorneys represent their clients, and yeah, at the hearings, it does happen. It's just like, even though it's virtual, same operations the same. If you have if a participant hires an attorney for this, it's the same due course. Nothing has changed just because it's ISP. I think sometimes with the virtual environment, some folks may feel like there's a limitation there, but the same in-person services that will be provided to any court user or attorney are available virtually. So if the judge decides that the participant, the applicant is now accepted into the program, they become our participant. General probation supervision utilizes the term clients. We like to use the term participant. So you might see a difference if you speak with general supervision about probation. So an ISP overview. So immediately once they're assigned to ISP, once they're selected into ISP, they are given an officer, and that officer is required to meet with the participant within 24 hours. Now that may be, logistically, it sounds like, well, why wouldn't they be able to see them, just like right out that day? So, so the way it works is we have our hearings in the morning, and they're usually around, our court sessions are very short. They could go for a half a day, so maybe 2-3 hours in the morning, depending on how many cases that we have on. And then once the judge signs the order, we have to get that information over to the Department of Corrections so that they be able to release them. They have to release them to us within a certain amount of time. And depending on what facility that they're housed at, we may have to go get them and bring them to where they're going to be staying. That will require a significant amount of travel. That the officer traveling to pick them up may not be the officer assigned to that case. So there's a little bit of logistics there to get them to where they need to be so that the officer can meet them within that 24-hour time frame. So they may not be able to meet with them that day, depending on if there's any issues with the DOC facility, if they had to delay release for whatever reason. So we give the officer that 24-hour window to meet with them and get acclimated with them. And that day they go over the conditions, and they go over what's called our Ferrara checklist. And Ferrara stands for the Fair Reentry Early Release Act, which was signed in 2009, which mandates that ISP provide a pamphlet of sorts or a form that they have to fill out that provides them with resources that they could go to, as well as aid them in getting documentation that they may need, such as a social security card or a birth certificate, which will aid them in the tools that will help them complete the mandatory employment requirement. They also go through a standard orientation with us to go over more details about the program, the overall resources that we provide, and explain to them how this is going to work, how you're able to succeed on the program. So with supervision on the program, so we utilize a variety of things. And when this is more rhetorical for you, when you think of intensive, what do you think of when you think of intensive? You think of like this, and you see in this picture here, someone who looks like an officer with a vest on, with probation slapped on their back, something that you may see on like Criminal Minds or something. We take this into account with our officers. We don't want them looking like police. We don't want them looking like SWAT. We don't want that approach with them. Although we do require them to wear vests because of the areas that they may have to go into, We don't want to give that optical approach that they're meeting with someone that appears like law enforcement, because we're not law enforcement. So that we feel like kind of like reduces the feeling that they're just dealing with, and their perception wise, they may be feeling that we're all in the same bucket, corrections, police, and all trying to like hurt this person. And that's not the case. We hopefully give off this image that we are trying to help them, support them, be that formidable relationship for them, so that they can trust us with their issues, and trust us to know that if they admit to something, if they admit to, if they've, signed on a condition, they're obviously not supposed to do drugs and not supposed to, drink alcohol. But if they admit that to us, that doesn't mean that that's an automatic return to prison. We utilize a risk needs assessment tool. You'll see that acronym on the top of the on the screen there, called ORAS. That's an acronym that we use that describes our risk assessment system, and it helps us evaluate the risk. It helps us understand what we're dealing with. And it's a long interview with the participant and the officer, where they kind of do like a deep dive into what the participant's life is like, who they've been involved with, what their family is like. And then from there, with all the data that we've gotten, we prepare a risk level. We get a risk level, what their supervision level will be, with our levels of supervision. And we create what we call a plan for success. We'll be able to, based on what they say, we'll be able to craft together, in addition to what the judges have already determined. We already know that if they'll need treatment, if they need to attend anything like Alcoholics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, things like that. But the plan for success will itemize certain things and give them certain goals that they have to meet, aside from what the judges have already ordered. So if we need them to work on, let's say, preparing their resume, we'll ask them to put together what their job history is like. Those little things. It sounds simple and small, but most of the time it's things that's never been asked of them. So we give them the opportunity to prepare it, and when they meet that goal, even if it's small short-term goal, they understand. They get incentivized for it, and it builds kind of like that momentum and motivation. Our contacts with our officers, they meet with them daily. They'll meet with them depending on our supervision level. Sometimes they'll have to go as far as meeting with them multiple times a week, physically in person, as well as phone calls. They'll have to verify that they're attending community service. And their schedules, just like with any supervision, it does have to indeed be varied. So if someone's not performing as well, we may have to vary the visitation, so they may not know that we're coming. And it's nights, days, and weekends as well. Our officers work Saturdays and Sundays to ensure that they're keeping up that relationship with them and making sure that they're getting out there and seeing what their clients are succeeding at, or what they may be struggling at. Participants. Treatment. This is one of the big things that we hone in on in ISP. We're very big on treatment. We're contracted with a wide variety of treatment providers across the state to get them to treatment and what they need. We're not these treatment providers, we're not their only clients. They may host a whole wide array of clients. So we don't want to be stuck in a position where we don't have space available in a treatment facility. It's the cornerstone of ISP. We feel like this is one of the strongest things we can do to address their issues. One being is that we pay for the treatment expense. They do not. So we'll cover the treatment for however long of a period that it is, with the understanding that we know that they may fail. We follow what the program will say, and we have a substance abuse evaluator staffed in each of our regions that will go over what the appropriate treatment plan should be, work with the facility, and get them in there. And we keep track of them along the way. They may fail in the facility. That doesn't mean they're going back to prison. They may struggle. That doesn't mean they're going back to prison. We know that they're going to struggle. We know that treatment may not work, and we may have to send them to another facility. We've sent participants to numerous facilities to get them all on that path. As long as they're willing and struggling, they're willing, even though we recognize that they're struggling, we'll continue to help them and provide for them. It does get to a point where we have to, evaluate their willingness. But it doesn't go over our heads that there may be participants that may be abusing the system. That may be sometimes, but it's not the case for everyone. So across the state, it's roughly around over 100 inpatient and outpatient abuse and mental health treatment providers that we have on contract. And we're always looking for more the merrier, as long as they qualify with meeting our needs and requirements. I had mentioned substance abuse treatment. We have staff in all 3 of our regions whose particular forte is dealing with substance abuse evaluation. And what they'll do, they will go in and look to see, based on what their drug use is, what their issues are, what the best care plan for that particular area would be. They're in frequent contact with our providers. Like I said previously, alcohol, marijuana use are prohibited. If for some reason, if there's a medical reason involved, we have a procedure for that, for medical marijuana, but alcohol and marijuana use are strictly prohibited. We do work with the DOC that there's no gap in treatment. So in that transition from going from DOC to our program, we look to ensure that is continuous, that there's no gap in there in treatment. Also, with mental health, we do make referrals for mental health evaluators and treatment recommendations. Although it is paid by private insurance, we can make referrals to state contracted vendors who would cover the cost. Mental health is something that we tend to focus on the supervision end, and look to get them resources to get them to treatment, get them to therapy. What would help them along the way is those officers having those discussions. If it's something that's risen to the level of something that we ordinarily wouldn't provide, that's not a stopgap for us. We'll be able to have discussions that's usually brought to like myself and Sabrina's attention to see if there are any alternate ways that we could address this mental health issue. If there's an alternate facility that we could consider. And this is a topic that we're constantly getting training on. I know the judiciary is addressing mental health constantly, and I know that they're expanding their approach towards addressing a mental health caseload and a mental health diversion, which is great. But for ISP specifically, we look over any indicators that would mean to us that there are mental health issues there, and it's something that we'll discuss in our internal meetings to determine what can we do for this person. The last thing we want to do for someone who's willing and working hard on the program and just trying to adjust and is struggling, we will look at this and say, all right, they're having a mental health issue. What can we do? What can we do for them? Ultimately, we do not want to return them because we didn't have the resource. It is an extreme rarity that would happen. One of the requirements that they have also in ISP is that they have to be housed somewhere. They can't live in like a hotel. They have to live in a facility. They have to live in a home somewhere with someone, and have a sponsor. But if for some reason they don't, that is not a stopgap for us. We do something that's called transitional housing, where we will fund their arrangements to secure housing that will pay for a limited period of time. Now we will pay initially for the first 30 days in transitional housing. This allows them to get whatever documents they need, apply for employment, situate themselves to get into housing somewhere. If for some reason they need more time on the 30-day if they were getting close to that 30-day threshold and they do not have housing yet, they can request an extension through me, which gets sent up to our director's office for final approval.
Carlos,
Yes.
what about group homes or shelters? What are they? Are they considered potential transitional housing, or is that
Yes.
out of the ordinary?
Yes. Yeah, group homes and shelters are considered housing. We don't want that to be like the permanent stay because financially we can't keep them on there for that long. But we typically give up to they get automatic 30 days and then we'll review it. If they need more time, we may give them another 30-day extension. We understand that timeframes have changed. It may take a little longer to get your driver's license. It may take a little longer to get a job. We understand as long as the person's willing, and we will utilize shelters and housing for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I assume perhaps you or Sabrina is going to address the application procedure. A couple of the attorneys are asking, how do you apply? Who do you apply to? Is there a link? That kind of thing.
Oh yeah. So with the application process, so that's part of our assessment team. They'll actually go into the prisons and leave applications. There's usually a resource there for an application. I do believe our application may or may not be online.
So is the expectation that the attorneys will file these applications, or the incarcerated persons will learn about this? And what's the timeline to file?
They can literally file at any time. Depending on their charge, they could apply as soon as they're convicted. Now the judge may argue that depending on, again, what's been presented to them, they may need to spend just a little more punitive time in prison just to effectuate some sort of a bit of the sentence. But there's no like minimum time that you have to be incarcerated to apply. If you feel that you've been, a week in and you want to apply, great. You can apply. If you've been in prison for a year or two, fine. The only limit that you have is that if your maximum amount of time that you could spend in probation is typically 5 years. And our rule is, and our process only allows us that if you're going to be incarcerated for more than the time that you would be allowed to be spent on probation, you typically aren't allowed to be on the program. You wouldn't be, because we wouldn't have enough time to house you if that's tied to your parole and eligibility. So say if you have 5 years of parole and eligibility, you're not going to be able to get into the program because you've soaked up your time. So it's a combination of your parole and eligibility that would calculate what your limit would be, limit of time that you would be, and if we would have enough time to provide you the resources in the program. So if we calculate the amount of time of your parole and eligibility with the amount of time that you would be able to spend on the program, and if it ended up being like 6 months, we would probably deny that because there wouldn't be enough time to provide you the resources that we have. But if it turns out to be like a year and a half, we'll absolutely do it. So, but the actual like start of the application process, whenever you want to apply, you can apply it as soon as you're convicted. But it's not like automatic that you would get it. You would still have to go through the review process, but they could do it as early as the day that they get to prison.
And again, the other question I had was who is typically going to initiate this process? Is it the incarcerated person, or is it the attorney? And
either or. The applicant can initiate the process, or the attorney. Either or. They can get the application if it hasn't been made available to them for some reason. The applicant can initiate it. But if they're not comfortable with it, I know they keep them in the I think they keep physical applications in the prisons. But if they've reached out to an attorney and the attorney wants to see it, they could send it to them, or they could reach out to us and send it to them if for some reason our link isn't available, or it hasn't been passed down to them yet.
Well, what I think the attorneys who are saying stuff in the chat. I think part of the process of communicating with your client is, listen, if we cop to this, you may be able to get ISP, and I'll help you with that, you know? So at the moment the judge signs the judgment of conviction, can the attorney, he isn't even there yet, you know, he's still in county or he's still on some bus somewhere. Can that process begin even before he sets foot in Southern State or wherever the heck he's going?
Yeah. I do believe Sabrina might be able to touch base on this more so than me because she's been an ISP longer. But I do believe when we were in person, we did have ISP representatives there handing out applications at the point of conviction, and even beforehand, handing out the pamphlets and stuff, informing them about ISP. But it is something that you could tell them beforehand, and it is part of the process. The judge will even factor in and weigh in on determine whether or not make the determination on whether or not they would get into the program. Not the judge the criminal division judge doesn't make the decision on whether or not they would be into ISP. They would give a recommendation on whether or not they feel that the person would be appropriate for ISP or not. But they're not the deciding factor. The ISP judicial panel judges are.
They make a recommendation. They say they have no objection, and I'm going to let you go on. We're at 12:52. We've got about 20 minutes. But one last question. Are the forms at the county jails?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Excellent.
Hey, Joe, Chuck Fest here. Do you mind if I ask one quick question? I just want to clarify one point.
Sure.
Of course.
Carlos, you said at one point in your disqualifying offenses, and I was going through them. I thought one of them said stip sentences are ineligible. You said just now, as long as your stip doesn't exceed 5 years. Can you get ISP if you have a stip sentence, a 4 with a 2, a 5 with a 3, a 42 with a 42, or does it have to be a flat sentence?
No. I think the stip part is it's not so much that you can get ISP. I tried to clarify the board. It's more so about the parole and eligibility. So
Okay.
you could have a sentence for longer than 5 years. What it really is your parole.
It just froze.
Yeah. It's the parole and eligibility that would be the factor.
It just froze. I couldn't hear you. Can you get ISP on a stip sentence?
Under the statute, the way it reads in the statute, I do believe. Just double check.
I've been told conflicting things, like whether it's stip or a NERA, to no early release.
If it was
because the common tale always told us if you get a flat sentence, you're okay. If you get a stip or a NERA, you're probably not going to get it.
I can circle back. NERA, I know for sure that you wouldn't be able to. But I couldn't. I can clear up if there were other steps. NERA typically.
Especially stip. I'm talking about big stip. It could be a 3 with a 1. 1's a stip. 42 with a 42. 42 is the stip. Can you still get it with a stip as opposed to a flat 4 or a flat 3?
We can look that up later.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I will speculate that if there's a stip, you're not getting ISP because it really defeats the purpose of the legislative intent.
Well, that is, but we're asking now.
However, your incarceration could be beyond the stip, right? If you get a 5 with a 1, you might be in there for 2 years. The stip is 1 year, so you got another year. So it seems like you should be able to apply for ISP in the non-stip part of your incarceration. That's
no problem. No, I get that, but can you still on a stip?
The more important question is a stip an absolute bar?
That's what I'm asking. Yes.
Right.
That's what I'm asking. Yes. Because I've got conflicting information.
So I the way that it's written out in the statute, and I'm coming back here.
Carlos, why don't you investigate that later? Because you're running out of time here, and you got Sabrina who wants to express.
Yeah, the bulk of the presentation.
Look that up. It's an is or isn't.
Thank you.
Let's.
Yeah. So So with group meetings, so like I mentioned before, we'll send our participants to Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and also other groups that will help them with critical thinking, and trying to engage other folks who are dealing with similar issues, who may not be on ISP to further bond that they're trying to reintegrate with society. Other treatment that we have: parenting classes, life skills, couples counseling, anger management, resource centers, parole programs that we work with them to utilize. And also like any other treatment programs that we're able to provide that if it's specific to the issue that we're providing, we will research and look for them to attend if it's going to benefit. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Sabrina, who's going to talk about our juvenile side of the program.
Right. Now, the Juvenile Intensive Supervision Program, which we call JIS, is a little bit different than ISP because this is dealing with the juveniles and the youth, and the dispositions are from family court. It allows the judge actually to refer select youth to serve their probationary term under the intensive supervision program. A lot of times these youth have been already given the benefit of probation. They may not have been successful on probation, and the judge may be giving them another opportunity under the intensive supervision juvenile program. So there's a referral process that takes place. It comes from the family court. There's a time frame that we do assessments, which is 13 business days. They have to, the GIS assessment unit have to provide the court with the assessment report investigation. The assessment report investigation does a lot of background. They do the mental health, substance abuse, the family background, what programs that they've previously been involved in, just to give a top overall assessment of this youth to see if he would be a great fit for the program. Once the admission report is done, that's when a plan for success is kind of established. After that referral is submitted, you go on to the admission report and the plan for success. So the plan for success for the youth starts at the assessment point. They start seeing what programs are going to be appropriate for this youth to succeed if they're entered into the GIS program. CMO is usually involved, which is a resource for the kids. They have that in conjunction with the family court. They get involved. The difference with JISP and ISP is that JISP does not have the funding that ISP has. So a lot of the resources that come from the community may be grant funded or through their parents' insurance or Medicaid if they have. There is no financial funding for the GIS program. We do provide like bus tickets for transportation if they have to get to and from their programs. We do offer that assistance for them. Also we go from the referral stage to the initial supervision stage. So once they get referred and they're accepted into the program, if there aren't any statutory denials or anything that's going to bar them from entering into our program, we start with supervision. And then once the supervision starts, they get conditions of the intensive supervision program. So the court may give them some special conditions in addition to the standard conditions. Those special conditions are going to assist them with kind of successfully reintegrating into the community. We want to give them the resources and tools that they need to be successful. So you have the family, you have the court, you have our staff, which are the officers supervising them. They come together in collaboration to assist them with the success that they need to complete the program. You have your ongoing supervision. Just like with ISP, there is an assessment tool for JISP that's used that gives us an idea of how we're going to be supervising this youth. in the program? Is it going to be at a reduced level, a moderate level, a high or an intensive level? And that's based on their risk. So, and that's based on their history. We also have sanction and incentives like ISP does. The sanction incentives when they are doing well and and succeeding on the program, they are incentivized. They may have curfew extensions. They may get the opportunity to go to day trips with their family to like amusement parks, different incentives to encourage continued compliance in the program. Also sanctions. So if they have done something that they have not complied with the rules and conditions, the officers do give them sanctions, which could be a curfew restriction where your curfew is reduced and not extended. So you have to be in the house earlier. You may have to do extended community service as a sanction. You may have to attend some alternate community service programs for community service as a sanction as well. Every 90 days, every 6 months, I'm sorry, there is a progress report that's sent to the court that gives an overall review of their assessment onto the program. Those progress reports sometimes gives the court an idea of where they are, what's going on. Are they doing well? Are they not doing well? What the officer is suggesting. Sometimes it's termination because the program may not be suitable for them. But most times we're putting systems in place to help them succeed, and we want to redirect some behavior. So we'll put things in place to deter, the antisocial behavior because we want to promote the pro-social behavior. Once they move on to a certain period of being into the program, the officers at the office visits, they go over their plan for success to make sure they're meeting their goals and objectives. After they're reviewing the plan for success, the officers, see them out in the community. They do school visits, community service visits, home visits, face-to-face visits to make sure they're having consistent contact with the youth to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing with the program. They get progress reports from the providers. If it's mental health, if it's substance abuse, they get progress reports from the school to make sure that they're attending and they're doing what they're supposed to do. 80% of the office of their time is spent in the field. This is the officers supervising the youth. So as we go on from the ongoing supervision stage, you get to like the graduation or the termination, which are the discharges. Graduations are for the youth that have successfully completed the program. They did a very good program, and then they're deserving of a graduation. If they haven't done, we have to terminate the case based on their expiration date because no one could stay beyond the expiration date. So everybody is given a term expiration date that come on to both ISP and JISP, and we have to make sure that they have completed the program by that date so that it's discharged. If they are not doing successful on the program, there is an option for a violation where we bring them back before the court. That is pretty much like one of our, final sanctions to get them into compliance with the program. That's like the final where we bring them back before the judge or the judicial panel so that we could our final attempt to gain compliance. Sometimes the participants are continued. Sometimes they're not. They're either discharged or for ISP, they're returned to prison. ISP and JISP have assistance, with the participants have assistance, like Carlos said, as far as transitional housing, bus tickets. We also have meals for them if they need meals, clothing, for business and for casual. So say, for instance, if they need clothing for a job interview, we have clothing for job interviews. If they need clothing for like work, if they're doing like construction work or any type of laboring work, we have clothes for that. We also have other incentives for motivation, and we do have employment assistance. Our role primarily is to engage, to encourage, and to educate to enhance the ability of our participants to change their behavior. We do have different programs, job readiness program, which allows them to get assistance to reintegrate not only back in the community, but getting back into the workforce. We have assistance with application prep. We have assistance with interview prep. We also have partnerships with reentry. The reentry programs that assist them with different life skills, we also assist with that as well. We have a FDI Money Smart program as well to help them become financially informed. It also educates them on different financial aspects. So when they're working, it teaches them how to budget their money, how to save, how to pay bills, how to contribute to the household. We also have a credit repair workshop that they're afforded the opportunity to attend that helps them repair credit. It helps them, informs them on credit as well. We have a speaker series that kind of encourages, inspires, and motivates them, that they attend and they get community service hours for that. The speaker series, we have different speakers that come in and talk about an array of topics that kind of helps them with life skills as well as encourage and motivate them. It's a virtual platform. It allows for questions and answers and engagement. And like I said, they do get credit for that. The graduations, we just had a graduation back in October. We graduated 21 ISP participants. The JISP participants, we haven't had a big graduation, but the Visnages have graduations that they are welcome to attend as well. The graduation actually is the greatest form of our incentive. It lets them know that they've completed the program successfully. We are, it's basically kind of a reward. And some of them have never even graduated. So this is a huge milestone and step for them. And we like for them, even after graduation, to continue being a part of we call it our ISP alum, where they could come back and give back to the participants that are currently in the program and kind of motivate, encourage, mentor, and inspire them that are currently on the program. Do you have any questions or you would like to raise regarding like the graduation or any of our speaker series, credit repair, or our FDIC Money Smart workshops? Those are great assistant tools that we have that is a little different from probation, but the probation community is invited to our series that we have as well.
We have about 5 minutes left and we'll take some questions. Before we do, if you go in the chat, if you know how to go in the chat, go in the chat. I have a secret code, but
Yeah.
also, like Karen does, I'll put the secret code up here. It's ISP02.
ISP02.
Yeah, so participants, ISP02. It's also in the chat. It's over there and it stays there. I'm going to move this in a minute. So that's the secret code. If you're going to apply for the CLE credits, make sure you send your check to the Bar Association, care of Executive Director Karen Corsi, and include the secret code. And if you forget it before we sign off, it's in the secret code.
Just the kind of I just want to touch base a little bit, as Sabrina was talking a little bit about our programs. Those programs like the Speaker Series and our FDIC Money Smart, those are internal programs that we've created to help aid our participants, and it's based off the feedback that they've given us. And one of the other things that we do was like a credit repair workshop. And it was surprising to us when they had asked for that, because we found that one of the biggest concerns that they had was participants had that was surprising to us was they wanted to repair their credit, and they revealed in their discussions that there were a lot of car repossessions that occurred because they were incarcerated, and there was a lot of things going on that they really cared about, and their credit was one of them. So we've created a lot of these programs based off of the participants' feedback. So we do listen to them in that regard and create programs. In our speaker series, we bring a wide array of speakers. Some, their turnaround stories where they have been incarcerated and have turned their lives around to be very successful. Others who are more of like on a spiritual healing end, like we'll do like a virtual like yoga session that helps, and also former ISP participants who come back and share their success stories. All things to help motivate them. And also our job readiness is one of our biggest key tools to help them prepare for the interviews that they're going to go on. The Judiciary is a part of the jobs program, which is a funded program through the Department of Labor, which creates cohorts through various companies throughout New Jersey, that these folks go through these cohorts, and afterwards they would either get an interview for a job somewhere, or they may get hired right off the bat. One of the ones that we that were contracted recently to conduct a cohort was PSC&G, and if the participants rather complete the cohort, PSC&G will employ them automatically, and through these cohorts they get a stipend as well. So they're seeing that the investment's being put in them. They're getting paid to attend these cohorts, and if they succeed to complete it, they have a job, and it's a strong career-based job. It's they'll usually start off with with any job. We usually call it the ADC. They'll start with any job, and then get to a better job, and then hopefully they'll get to a career. So with the jobs program, which has been very successful amongst the businesses in getting folks employed, we utilize it as well, and along with our mandatory employment requirement, we want to get them a job, but we want to see them at the end, hopefully get a career as well.
Well, thank you, Carlos. Sabrina, do you have any parting comments for us as we wrap things up? We got a few minutes left.
No, not exactly. Just we look forward to working with you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can walk you through any questions that you may, need if you're at like a crossroad of anything. We're always here and available.
Yo, Chuck, again, I got one question I think some people might be interested in. If a client gets into ISP, how much time would they expect to serve in it? From the time they get placed into the program to the time you're released, if they fulfill everything in its normal course, how long is it?
That's a very popular question. There is no set minimum. I clear this up. There is no set minimum of time that they have to spend on ISP. It's really based on the conditions of their plan. So if they have to complete levels of treatment, pay off like their fines and fees and restitution, it's just the amount of time that they take to complete their conditions.
But if it's not money-wise, what would the normal course would be for just getting in, and if you complete everything you're supposed to do, just average-wise? I'm curious.
So if you complete like a treatment plan, community service, nothing like fines and fees based, depending on the time they get in the program, they could spend. Again, this is not like a block time. It's just roughly, we could have someone off the program if they've complied with everything. 20 months, 22 months, but that would be on the light end of the conditions.
No, that's a good, okay, just an idea. Okay, thank you.
But it also depends on their compliance. If they have to be completely compliant, like if they have any setbacks, that adds into developing a plan for rehabilitation for that. So, but it's not a set number. So we don't want the idea going around like, hey, you could get out in 20 months if you just have barely nothing on there. What really drives that time is their compliance on the program and how well they're performing.
Assuming no setbacks and total compliance, and they're a model participant.
That's what I'm checking.
Right, but assuming all of that, don't the parole guidelines impact when you're going to get off ISP? I mean, if normal parole guideline says on a flat 5, you got to do 1 year and so many
Yeah.
months. You know, if you're
No.
done early with ISP,
Yeah,
ISP,
they have a limit. They do have a limit to where they and what we call their max date. They have a limited amount of time that they could spend. So if their max date is, say, you know, January 30th of 2026, that's the amount of time that we have, and we have to make a decision on whether we're going to, this person's going to graduate from the program, that they've completed everything. We have something also called a termination, where maybe they didn't do so well, not enough for graduation, but you know, you're being terminated from the program, not in a negative way. You're just, you know, you're just weren't eligible for graduation.
And
If you complete it, are you released onto parole or you're
No.
done?
No,
You're
you're
done.
done. Right.
done.
I want to add to that, like, just to sum it up, it's like a case by case basis. It's not a one size fit all. So
Mm.
everybody has an individual case plan. So it's not like everybody come in and this is your time, is the time is this from this period to that period. It's individualized based on their case plan, based on the time that they were sentenced and how much time they have. Everything is individualized. So it customizes it because some people's time is different, shorter than others, you know, and it gives them an opportunity to take advantage of, you know, the incentives that they have if they do a very good program.
But I
Thank you.
guess the question before was, Carlos, is can you graduate and be released from obligation on ISP before the minimum term you have to serve under parole guidelines?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. How about that?
Okay.
I mean, you could beat the wheel on the minimum custody with the ISP, provided you do all the things and
Yes.
Yeah.
that's not common, but it could happen. Interesting. Well, Carlos, Sabrina, thank you for this wonderful program. We've always been curious about this. I was curious about this as a prosecutor. I'm even more curious about it as someone who does a little defense work, and I know that some of my peers and colleagues are. Thank you for all the good work that you do. Thank you for having an informed and progressive and empathic approach to people that are incarcerated. You know, we need more people like you in this world. So thank you so much, and thank everybody for participating. And you know, hopefully you wrote down the secret code, and I'll see all of you at the next presentation. Or maybe
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. And I haven't forgotten about the stipulation question. I just want to give you a little more formalized answer.
Yeah.
I'll send that to you, Joe, because I want to go over the stipulations. I know it's not statutorily, they're not statutorily denied, but I do want to go over I do at least want to explain the steps that we have come across, like NERA, that would make it like they wouldn't been taken for NERA, but I want to go over the other steps that we have seen to give you a clearer picture of what.
Talk to the legal geeks, get us the answer. We'll share it with the membership.
Yes.
Thank
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
for having
guys.
me.
Great job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care.
Take care.